All right, tell me if you've heard this one lately. Tampa's turning into the next Miami. At first, I kind of laughed it off, like, come on, Miami? But the more I dug into what's actually happening around here, the luxury condos, the money pouring in, the whole vibe shift, the more I realized people aren't just saying it to say it. There's a reason Tampa's getting compared to Miami, and depending on who you ask, that's either super exciting or kind of terrifying. So what's really going on? Is Tampa about to pull a full Miami glow up, or will the city hold on to the fabric that makes Tampa so special? Stick with me, we're about to break it all down, and I promise some of this stuff might make you wonder what's to come. Stay tuned. So here's the thing, this whole Tampa's turning into Miami chatter didn't just come out of nowhere. It's not like someone woke up one day and decided Tampa needed a new personality. It's actually been brewing for a while, and if you've been paying attention, you've probably felt it too. First off, the growth here is wild. We're talking thousands of people moving in every month. Not just from other parts of Florida, but from all over the country, especially places like New York, Chicago, and even California. And they're not just bringing their stuff, they're bringing money. Developers definitely noticed too, because over the last few years, they've been pumping billions into luxury projects, high-end condos, waterfront towers, resorts, restaurants, even private social clubs. All the kinds of things you'd expect to see in Miami, not necessarily Tampa. But it's not just real estate. It's the whole energy shift. Tampa's always had its own charm, but now you've got this influx of younger professionals, remote workers, and entrepreneurs who want that mix of sunshine and upscale living. They're craving the lifestyle Miami's famous for, the waterfront brunch spots, rooftop lounges, places to see and be seen, and Tampa's starting to deliver. And if we zoom out just a bit, this isn't the first time Florida's gone through this. Miami itself wasn't always Miami. It went from a retirement and party town to a global destination because of the same combo: people, money, and a whole lot of hype. So the real question is Tampa following that same playbook? Or is this just a temporary glow up before the city settles back into its own laid-back vibe? That's exactly what we're about to dig into, starting with the luxury real estate boom that's got everyone talking. But while I have your attention, if this is your first time on the channel, I'm Morejon, and my real estate team helps people buy, sell, and relocate to the Tampa Bay area by sharing exactly what it's like living here. And folks, there's no one bringing you videos quite like we do. So if you're thinking about making a move, feel free to reach out. All of our contact info is right in the description below and pinned on the chat. Now, if you really want to see where all these Miami comparisons start to feel real, just look at what's happening in Tampa's real estate market, especially on the luxury side. Because let's be honest, not that long ago, Tampa wasn't exactly known for high-rise living or multi-million-dollar condos with valet service and rooftop pools. That was a Miami thing. But fast forward to today, and Tampa's luxury market is exploding. Take Water Street, Tampa. That whole development feels like it was ripped right out of Brickell. You've got the Addition Residences, which is basically a luxury hotel you can live in, plus the Ritz-Carlton residences going up right along Bayshore. These aren't just high-end for Tampa, they're high-end period. You've got units selling for 7 figures and buyers flying in from places like New York, Toronto, and even Europe to snatch them up. And it's not just in the city core. Out on the beaches, spots like Clearwater Beach and even St. Pete are seeing their own version of this luxury wave. Beachfront condos with resort-style amenities, private marinas, concierge services, all the stuff Miami's been doing for years. But here's the kicker. Tampa's prices, even at the high end, are still way cheaper than Miami's. That's a big part of what's driving this. A buyer who's been priced out of Miami can come to Tampa, grab a waterfront condo for millions less, and still get that luxury lifestyle without South Beach traffic and sky-high taxes. It's like Tampa's offering the Miami dream, but with a little more breathing room, at least for now. And you can't compare things to Miami without talking about the culture, because let's be real, it's not just about where you live, it's about how you live once you're there. Because here's the thing. Real estate might show you what's being built, but if you really want to know where a city's headed, you've got to look at how people are actually living. And in Tampa, that part's shifting fast. Tampa's always had this kind of laid-back Gulf Coast energy, more boats and beers than bottle service and velvet ropes. But lately, there's a new crowd moving in, and they're bringing a totally different vibe. You've got younger professionals, remote workers, and entrepreneurs who aren't just here for the weather. They want the lifestyle to match. They're looking for waterfront brunch spots, rooftop bars with DJs, and high-end restaurants where you might actually need a reservation. And Tampa's stepping up to meet that demand. You've got places like Predalina and Roca landing on best restaurants lists. The Edition Hotel isn't just somewhere to stay, it's a whole scene with a rooftop pool, trendy cocktail bars, and the kind of ambiance that wouldn't feel out of place in Miami's design district. Even the events scene here is starting to level up. Tampa's hosting more high-end profile festivals, fashion events, and pop-ups that pull in influencers and celebrities. It's not just Gasparilla anymore. Now you've got upscale wine festivals, luxury car showcases, and even yacht parties popping up on the calendar. But here's the part that's really interesting. Tampa's not just copying Miami's playbook, it's blending some of that luxury energy with its own laid-back waterfront vibe. It's a little less dressed to impress and a little more flip-flops optional, even at the nicer spots. That blend of luxury and low-key is what's giving Tampa its own unique flavor. And as more people move in and more money flows into the city, the big question is, can Tampa keep that balance? Or is it headed straight for a full Miami-style transformation? To figure that out, we need to talk about what's happening behind the scenes in Tampa's economy and the business world, because just like Miami, the money flow isn't from tourism anymore. So here's where things get really interesting, because when you start seeing all these new luxury condos, high-end restaurants, and rooftop lounges popping up, you know it's not just random. The kind of development follows the money, and right now, Tampa's seeing a whole new kind of money moving in. Historically, Tampa's economy leaned pretty heavily on tourism, healthcare, and the military. And while those are still huge pieces of the puzzle, the new wave of growth is coming from a totally different direction. We're talking finance, tech, and corporate relocations. Big name companies like Pfizer, Amgen, Bristol-Myers Squibb, they're all expanding their footprint in the Tampa Bay area. On the tech side, Tampa's emerging as a bit of a sleeper city for startups and remote work hubs, especially for professionals who want big city opportunities without the big city headaches and price tags. And here's a trend that feels very Miami. Tampa's also starting to pull in more international money. You've got wealthy investors, especially from Latin America and Europe, scooping up luxury properties and using Tampa as their US base, something Miami's been known for since the 80s. But here's what's making Tampa's economic story a little different. It's not just attracting wealth, it's attracting families, mid-career professionals, and entrepreneurs, people who aren't just looking for vacation homes, but actually want to build businesses and lives here. That balance between corporate expansion, international investment, and a steady flow of young talent is what's turning Tampa from a regional hub into a serious economic player. And just like in Miami, that kind of economic evolution always brings some growing pains, especially when it comes to balancing all the growth with the culture and affordability that made people want to move here in the first place. So the real question is, can Tampa keep evolving without losing its soul? That's where things get a little tricky. Now, with all this talk about Tampa turning into the next Miami, let's just pump the brakes for a second, because here's the truth. Tampa's never gonna be a carbon copy of Miami, and honestly, that's kind of a good thing. Even with all the luxury developments, the rooftop bars, the fancy restaurants, Tampa's still Tampa at its core. It's a city that's always had this laid back, almost neighborly vibe, and that's not something you just erase overnight. For starters, Tampa's geography alone changes everything. Miami's all about the dense, urban, high-rise lifestyle, especially in places like Brickell and downtown. Tampa, on the other hand, spreads out. You've got urban pockets, sure, but you've also got suburbs like West Chase, Wesley Chapel, and Carrollwood, where you're just as likely to see families grilling with company as you are to see influencers snapping pics at a trendy brunch spot. And when it comes to culture, Tampa's got its own blend going on. A mix of old Florida history, Cuban influence, beach culture, and a dash of Southern charm. Miami's energy is way more international, heavy on Latin American influence, global wealth, and that 24/7 hustle. Tampa's vibe, it's a little slower, a little more choose your own adventure. Even Tampa's luxury scene feels different. In Miami, luxury is flashy, the cars, the designers, everything. The whole you gotta be seen or be seen mentality. And in Tampa, even the high-end lifestyle feels a little more low-key. It's about waterfront living, boat days, and laid-back luxury than trying to impress strangers at a club. But just because Tampa isn't becoming Miami 2.0 doesn't mean there aren't growing pains. Anytime a city evolves this fast, you start running into the big question: how do you keep that local charm, that special sauce, while still making room for the future? And that's where the people who already live here and the ones thinking about moving really need to pay attention, because what's happening now, it's gonna shape Tampa in the next 5 or even 10 years. At the end of the day, whether you've lived in Tampa for years now or just thinking about moving here, all this Miami talk isn't just hype, it's already changing what life feels like around here. For locals, it's a bit of a love-hate situation. On one hand, all the new restaurants and entertainment options and luxury projects, that's exciting. And rising home values definitely aren't hurting anyone who already owned property. But on the flip side, neighborhoods are filling up fast, construction's everywhere, and traffic, well, let's just say it's not easy breezy Tampa of 10 years ago. There's also that under the surface question a lot of locals have. How much growth is too much before Tampa starts to lose the charm that made people fall in love with it in the first place? For anyone thinking about moving here, the window of Tampa being a low-key, affordable Florida gem is closing fast. Prices have climbed, competition is stiff, and it's not just locals you're up against. Buyers from Miami, New York, and even overseas all eyeing the same waterfront properties, trendy neighborhoods, and suburban hotspots. But the bottom line, Tampa's at crossroads. It's evolving fast, and whether you love it or hate it, it's something anyone living here or thinking about living here needs to keep an eye on. Because where Tampa goes from here, that's the real story, and it's happening right now. So is Tampa really becoming the next Miami? Well, in some ways, absolutely. The luxury boom, the lifestyle shift, the flood of out-of-state money, it's all following a playbook we've seen before. And honestly, if you've been here for a while, you've probably felt it happening, even if you couldn't quite put your finger on it. But here's the thing. Tampa's never gonna be exactly like Miami, and that's not a bad thing. Tampa's got its own personality, its own pace, and its own way of blending luxury living with laid-back waterfront vibes. That balance, that's the sweet spot. The big question now is whether we can hold on to it. Growth like this can either elevate a city or completely reshape it. And right now, Tampa's future is still being written. If you're already here, you're living through a moment that's gonna define what this city becomes. And if you're thinking about moving here, there's no better time to get familiar with how Tampa's changing, because where you buy, what neighborhood you choose, and when you make your move could make all the difference. If you've got questions about the market, the neighborhoods, or just life in Tampa, reach out. We're always happy to help you figure it all out. And hey, if you've enjoyed this deep dive, hit that subscribe button and stick around for more Tampa updates. There's always something new happening around here, and I've got you covered. Thank you for watching, and until that next video, I'll catch you later. Woo!